Political campaign ads are meant to introduce people to a politician running for office. You've all seen them. They're commonplace. They've become fairly generic and formulaic. The typical ad usually features the candidate with their family as you hear them talking vaguely about their faith and patriotism, sometimes holding a gun. But every once in a while, a new ad by a new politician comes out that subverts expectations and touches a nerve because it speaks to the moment in which we are living. And that is what happened last week when Katie Darling, a Louisiana Democrat running for a seat in the House of Representatives, released her latest campaign ad. As she speaks, and I want you to pay very close attention. If you're doing something else, just stop and watch this for a second. As she speaks in a voiceover about Louisiana's draconian abortion ban and the lack of support the state gives poor pregnant women, the ad features footage of Darling going through labor.
I'm Katie Darling, and I live on a farm in St. Tammany Parish. Our family composts, collects rainwater, and grows our own food. My husband and daughter help take care of the chickens. And there's someone else who's going to be joining us and helping to pitch in with farm life very soon. But these days, I worry about storms that are stronger and more frequent because of climate change, about our kids underperforming public schools, and about Louisiana's new abortion ban, one of the strictest and most severe in the country. We should be putting pregnant women at ease, not putting their lives at risk. I haven't spent my career in Washington. I've worked my way up from bartender to CEO. Now I help nurses organize their complicated health records. Because nurses aren't just heroes, they're saints. Louisiana deserves better than the path we're on. I'm Katie Darling, and I'm running for Congress because I want that better path. For you, for her, and here we go, for him.
We don't make it a habit to show full political ads on this show typically, but that one is different in all the years I've been covering things. Katie Darling joins me now. She is the Democratic candidate running against Congressman Steve Scalise, the House Minority Whip in Louisiana's 1st District. Katie, thank you for being with us. I need you to tell me a little bit about what the thinking was on this ad. You are definitely portraying yourself as an outsider, which is very relevant to a lot of voters today who are sort of tired of insiders making decisions for them. But you're portraying yourself as an outsider who has experiences that will relate directly to the people you hope are going to vote for you and for whom you are going to represent.
Well, I really wanted to share my story of what it's like to be a pregnant person in Louisiana during the summer of 2022. And I wanted to share what it's like to be having a family in a state where the quality of life is 50 out of 50. And families are already struggling and suffering with storms and our education system. And the recent trigger abortion ban only makes things much more difficult.
There are, in American history, only 10 members of Congress have given birth while in office. Tammy Duckworth, the Senate Democrat from Illinois, became the first and only senator to do so in 2018. By the way, this happens in other countries. We've had prime ministers giving birth and politicians giving birth, and a lot more women being represented in country legislatures. Do you think women with your experience, in what way do women with your experience, if they are elected, change the way some of these things that you talk about in your ad are done in America?
Well, we need more diverse representation in office, in every office across the country, in state legislatures, in D.C., so that folks can speak about what their life is like and represent the people in their districts, in their home states. And represent various life experiences. So when there are more women in office, more women with children in office, we can directly speak to the current impact of this legislation, and we can draft legislation that helps have folks, helps provide resources for producing healthy families. And so when you have women in office, we can speak up on behalf of ourselves and our communities. But currently, with a majority of folks that don't have young kids and a majority of men in office, that's how dangerous legislation gets passed, like what we're seeing here in Louisiana.
And by the way, the collapse of Roe v. Wade, which has activated a lot of women to be concerned, and a lot of men to be concerned about the taking away of rights. But even before that, we don't have paid family leave. We don't have maternity leave in the way that most other developed countries have. How does that resonate with people? How does this ad in particular and your views on those? I mean, it's more than kitchen table matters, right? These are life matters. How is it resonating?
Well, I can tell you that I didn't have paid leave in my first pregnancy, and I ended up going back to work way too soon. Luckily, I am working with a company now where I do have paid leave, so I'm on maternity leave right now while also running for Congress. And so these things are real, and the point of my ad is to share how real these circumstances are. And I feel like in the ad, folks are connecting to the reality and the impact of this legislation. So
the bit of a problem here is that you're running in a district where there is a Republican there. He's very senior, and the idea that the Republicans might take Congress would be appealing to some of your voters, your constituents, because they've got Steve Scalise, who is going to be in leadership. He's not just going to be a member of Congress. He's going to be in leadership. How do you overcome that? How do you deal with the fact that some people vote for somebody because they think they're going to be important in Congress?
Well, we have to put aside partisan politics, and we have to look at what life is like here at home. Steve Scalise has been in office for 14 years, and Louisiana is still 50 out of 50 in quality of life. We are dealing with more storms, and Steve Scalise is voting against legislation that brings resources back home to recover from storms, to rebuild our infrastructure. He votes against bills that bring resources home to improve education. And we are living through that. And so I hope that voters can look at his voting history and see how he's voting against our interests here at home for partisan politics.
I want to ask you about something you said. It was published in The Cut October 5th, in which you said it's important for folks to see how pregnancy and birth is a medical event that occurs in a hospital with doctors. I'm the one in the hospital bed, not the legislatures in Baton Rouge or Washington. It's me. It's my family. It affects us. We are the people who should be deciding what goes on in that hospital room, not the folks for outside. You're talking about pregnancy and birth, but that could actually apply to Roe v. Wade.
Absolutely. I believe every person has the right to privacy and to bodily autonomy. And I support everybody making the decisions they want to make for their families, but that's exactly who should be making those decisions. The person themselves and their medical professionals consulting them. It shouldn't be legislators in D.C. or Baton Rouge.
I'll just leave with one more quote from that same article in which you say, I was 7 months pregnant this summer when they overturned Roe v. Wade. I had a high-risk pregnancy. I was very concerned about what would happen to me if I had a complication during my pregnancy. And my first reaction was I needed to move somewhere where I would be safe. Katie Darling, thank you for the ad. Thanks for being with us this morning. Thanks for talking about it. And thanks for taking time out of your maternity leave to talk to my viewers. Katie Darling is a candidate for Louisiana Congress in the 1st District.